Hey, Emma.
Yes, Madelyn.
What do you tell the salesperson when you're looking for, like, a black or, like, navy denim?
I don't know. What do you tell him?
Give me Jeanne d'Arc. Hello and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your promising young frog host, Madelyn.
I'm your Scottish horror host, Emma.
And thanks for tuning into this week's show. This week we've got to do the whole podcast in bad Scottish accents or bad French accents.
Yeah, we do the first half in bad French accents, and then we do the second half in even worse Scottish accents.
I don't think I can't do either in any meaningful way.
Kenny.
Oh no.
That's how they do that, right?
That was really good.
Thanks.
Anyway, this week we're talking about Jeanne d'Arc, which Emma said to me 5 seconds before we hit play. She's like, you could just say Joan of Arc.
That's what it means, you know?
And I said, no. So we're talking about Jeanne d'Arc, and we're talking about Still Wakes the Deep, which I did have in my brain as She Wakes the Deep, which I think is also a good title that someone should use at some point.
It's a good title. Both
Isn't
good
it?
titles. Yeah.
Like, conjures something, certainly.
Wakes the deep is just a good phrase, I think. So
Yeah. But we're not starting there. The deep sleeps. The deep slumbers. Because it's Jeanne d'Arc time.
Yeah. Jeanne d'Arc, another game that has the distinguished status of being a game I owned on my PSP.
Wow.
But it's not the, like, pinnacle status of games I finished on my PSP, which I think was just Crisis Core and maybe not even Birth by Sleep, to be honest. So
1.5 games.
But it is the only PSP game that I still actually own.
Oh, wow.
I think, because I found it in my drawer the other day.
The value of that has probably plummeted.
Yeah. Nobody uses UMD anymore.
No, I just mean, there might have been a market for that like 2 months ago before it came to PS
right.
Plus.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it has now been freed from the confines of the PSP because sadly Sony announced the PlayStation 5 Pro rather than the Vita 2, as I was kind of hoping they would.
I was going to comment on that because this game I was reading about and I was like, I could use a new strategy RPG on my Switch right now. I'm doing enough, like, subwaying about and flying on planes and stuff that this game looks like it could have scratched an itch. And it's a shame that I can't carry my PS5 around. Look, I know there's no shortage of tactical RPGs, right? I'm aware, listener, that you're like, isn't every Nintendo Direct just non-stop tactical RPGs, strategy RPGs? And you're right. Of course, it is. But I read about this one for the podcast, and I had the impulse of it would be nice if this was on portable.
Well, what's that weird thing that Sony released, the Portal or whatever?
The Portal is useless.
I know, you can't bring it on a plane.
The Portal is not useful for me. For me, who enjoys being a little creature on my couch, alright. Like, my couch is not far enough. I don't know. Like, okay, yes, I could play PlayStation games handheld in my bed, I guess, maybe. But not on the subway. What's the point? What's the point?
That's why I was really hoping Vita 2, but...
Can you imagine if they had, like, made it seem like it was going to be the Pro, and they were like, just kidding. Actually, people would have lost their minds, probably.
It would have been the absolute... It's kind of the worst time to release a handheld with the... Well, I guess we don't know if the Switch 2 will be handheld. Who knows? So...
Well, whatever. Compete with it, right? I don't know. I am surprised that neither... Not surprised. I'm observing that it's interesting that neither Sony nor Microsoft have gotten into the handheld game, given that all of the console energy right now seems to be around that.
Anyway, Jeanne d'Arc... originally on the PlayStation Portable from Level 5. makers of Layton. They make Layton, right? And
Dark Cloud
and other stuff. Originally released in 2006 in Japan and 2007 in North America.
Not in Europe.
Yes.
It's too soon.
Yes, the PlayStation 4. Yeah, it was too soon. Now it's fine. The 4 and 5 version is available in Europe. So
we're finally allowed to joke about the 100 Years of War.
Yeah, it's not too soon anymore. And is a very loosely based on the 100 Years War and the life of Joan of Arc.
You're telling me that there weren't actually demons in the 100 Years War? How did it go on for 100? If there weren't demons, what were they fighting for 100 years about?
I don't know.
You took AP Euro. You should be able to tell me.
I don't remember very much about the 100 Years War, if I'm being perfectly honest.
So you can't confirm there weren't demons, is what you're saying.
You're right. I can't confirm that there weren't demons, and I can't confirm that... which Henry is it? Henry the Sixth wasn't a creepy child with a teddy bear and a clown assistant.
I think uncle,
whatever. I can't confirm it.
Or deny it. And maybe Joan of Arc did have a very low-key magical girl transformation. Who knows? That, I am gonna say. The rest of it, I'm joking. Of course, no demons. Like, Henry VI, probably not demon-possessed, right? All of that. Those were jokes. Joan of Arc having a low-key magical girl transformation seems like within the 30% realm of probability.
Sure. We do, modern media does like to reinterpret her that way, so perhaps it is. There's a thread of truth there.
What is it about Joan of Arc that's like, she should be Sailor Moon?
Because it's just, the real Joan of Arc probably was not actually, like, big girl power, cool lady. Very much.
No, like malnourished child.
Yeah, right? She heard the voice of God. I don't think she was, woke. Just throwing that out there. But there is still something, like, compelling about, like, the female knight and a holy mission, whatever, and something, tragic about, like, the being burned, right? So
something tragic.
The general threads of her story feel very, like, made for storytelling, right? So we like to take her out of the context a little bit and recontextualize her and give her a magical girl transformation.
As she deserves, and 1 in 3 chance had.
There are other characters, too, who are based on real people, including, Gilles? Is that how you would say it in French?
You would have to tell me.
Gilles de Rais, who, I don't think he did his serial killing while he was hanging out with Joan of Arc, so...
No, well, there doesn't seem to be a lot of consensus around this guy. I did get pulled into the wormhole of, like, someone on Reddit being like, he probably didn't do it, he was set up. Which I was like, I should probably be reading about the game again at this point.
I don't know if I trust the word of a Reddit guy, too, about
especially a
Reddit
Reddit guy, someone kept being like, that's really interesting, can you send me sources? And could not really.
Yeah.
Learned a lot about... not a lot. I learned one Reddit's thread amount about this guy. But yeah, he was like a convicted child serial killer who also got burned at the stake, right?
Yeah.
So...
But
did historically hang out with Joan of Arc.
Yes, and I think most of the killing happened after the Joan of Arc stuff. So in some ways, his portrayal, maybe just after the game ends, he does some serial killing. I don't know.
Look, some people online were like, he was so messed up about Joan getting killed that something in him snapped.
Okay, let's calm down, serial killer fangirls. Okay.
Yeah, I know. But he does have kind of an evil design in the game. That was something I did see in the Jeanne d'Arc Reddit thread of people being like, well, he does look kind of evil, to be fair.
Yeah, but he's
which is
like...
also a totally fair way to identify serial killers.
Yeah, by whether they look vaguely
There are
evil.
no, like, notable historical examples of, like, very charming serial killers.
Yeah.
Never.
But he's your homie in the context of this game. So we've also removed him from his context a little bit.
It's a really odd choice.
I mean, he did hang out with Joan of Arc, so I guess they were like, yeah, let's just put in this real guy. I don't know.
It just feels like, I mean, whatever, right? Like, whatever. But it's so interesting. I don't know. I sort of feel like, an opportunity to, like, put in a guy inspired by that guy who maybe doesn't have that guy's name.
I know. It's not like there are original characters in the game Jeanne d'Arc.
You're telling me that Joan of Arc didn't really have a frog companion?
I don't think so.
What the heck? A toad. Sorry, a toad, like a purple toad.
Yeah, I don't think he had... If she did, I don't think that he was very talented. Like this toad.
Anyway, in this game, I mean, it is pretty self-explanatory to be like, you're Joan of Arc, right? But let me give you the magical backstory. So, in this world, the timeline is a little unclear to me because it seems like this demon war happened a long time ago, but then the guys who stopped the demons are still alive. So the timeline of it is a little confusing to me. But before the 100 Years' War, at some indeterminate point, there was a war between humans and demons. And we grapple with that as humans in a sick anime cutscene that opens the thing. Where they've created 5 magical armbands, and they blast the demons with armband magic, and the demons are banished. Mm-hmm. And then, later on, the humans were like, actually, even though we all had to fight the demons together, we also still hate each other, which is the history of humanity, right? So now the 100 Years' War is happening between England and France. And England, specifically, like, the uncle of Henry VI.
Duke of Bedford. Real guy. Probably didn't dress like he does in the game, but who knows? Probably
not. But the regent, right? Henry VI, a kid, not ready to be king yet.
Right.
So, ruling. And he decides that the way to win the war is to, like, let the demons possess little Henry in exchange for demon soldiers. Which, I can't say I wouldn't have made the same decision.
Yeah.
If you're in year, like, 60 of a war that you have named the 100 Years' War, because, like, that's how it worked.
Yeah, right.
Right. Was not a post facto name. I would also be making an effort to be like, could I make this the, like, 63 Years' War?
Anyway, Henry VI also in this game looks a little evil even before he's possessed by demons. So it's really
you could look at that kid and be like, he might want this.
Yeah, he's probably chill. He looks like he was made to be possessed by demons.
Like, Uncle, tell me a story!
One too many bedtime stories for the Duke of Bedford. He's like, you know what? Demons upon you.
Anyway, then over in rural France, Jeanne and her friend Leanne, and then later her friend Roger, right? Like, she and Leanne have, like, gone to, like, save Roger from the forest, and when they come back, their village has been burned. But she finds a magic armband, and hears the voice of God.
Yes.
And so now it's time to save France.
Yeah.
Through a series of turn-based tactical battles.
Yeah.
As in history.
As it was in history. As all wars are fought. With
that
grids.
Is how it works.
With grids on the ground.
It's crazy how much effort goes into putting down the grids.
Some party members, like, a lot of it is pretty typical to what you'd expect for a tactics game. The, like, main gimmick is that Jeanne and some of the other party members later have magical armbands that can transform them for a period of time and, give them special abilities and enhanced skills in order to sort of turn the tides of battle to your favor.
Beyond that, it's got a weapons triangle. You can actually transfer skills between party members, which I thought was sort of a neat thing. So if you decide you want your paladin to be a healer, you can make that choice. I didn't catch any character summaries online to see if she gets burned at the stake at the end.
I don't remember. I didn't finish the game.
Emma doesn't know either. So you'll have to play it.
This is on my list. Next year is my tactical RPG year. I can feel it, right?
Yeah, 2025, big year for the tactical RPG.
It's going to be the big year for me. I'm going to get to Tactics Ogre finally. I'm going to play this. You know, they're going to announce the Final Fantasy Tactics remaster, surely.
Like, inevitably, right?
Surely. So, that's going to be my year for getting back to this and trying this again.
I could just be super ignorant, and as soon as I say this, you're going to be like, Madelyn, what about this game, this game, this game, this game, and this game? But I feel like there aren't as many games about, like, 1400s Europe.
Yeah. I mean, there's Pentiment. I don't remember when Pentiment is set exactly. But that's not an RPG. There's a lot of stuff, you know, most tactics RPGs I feel like are sort of inspired by our romanticized picture of that sort of vague time when Europe had knights, right?
Sure.
But yes, in terms of actually setting it, demons or not, you know, in terms of actually setting it in that time period, yeah, there's not too many. There, you know, I think if you look at like chivalry and stuff like that, there's definitely a Western subgenre with like knights and stuff. I'm doing just what you said I do. I don't know when a Plague Tale is set. I guess Black Death type time.
I guess I just mean, you know, in my continued fascination with, like, what are the stories that we tell over and over and over again, and what are the ones that we simply do not, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, Greek mythology gets told and retold over and over again. There's, like, a million Romance of the Three Kingdoms era takes in China, right? We see a lot of samurai era Japan. But it's, like, theoretically a little surprising that sort of 100 Years' War Europe period doesn't have more, I don't know, doesn't have more semi-historical takes, right? We have a lot of, like, it vaguely exists in something that's probably this time.
Yeah.
Stories. But interesting that, like, this period of history, despite the fact that it's, like, more Western and, like, ostensibly more familiar to more developers, doesn't get told a lot. I mean, I guess same thing with, like, where are the Revolutionary War games, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, not a lot of, I guess this would, I don't know when King Arthur would be in general,
Earlier
but
than this.
not a lot of King Arthur games, which is somewhat surprising, I feel
King
like.
Arthur is surprising because, yeah, like, I'll put Revolutionary War in a different camp because it's like, okay, maybe we're a few hundred years removed
It's
from
too
George
soon,
Washington.
Madelyn. Okay?
Yeah, no, you're right. That was
just like the 100 Years' War.
That was literally what I was going to say, is that I think we are maybe not quite far enough away for George Washington to be, like, you know, having, like, romance arcs.
Right.
Or, like, yeah, being able to ride a dragon or something. Right. But King Arthur should be all over the place. Perfect and, like, Western analogy to any of, or, like, slightly later history Western analogy to all of these kind of mythologized real historical figures.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Joan of Arc, you know, in the same category.
We like setting things in space over here in the West, I think, too much, you know?
That's true. We like space too much.
We like thinking about space a lot.
Where's the Neil Armstrong game? Where's Buzz Aldrin? Where's the game about those two astronauts who are never coming home? I'll tell you, they're going to be off Broadway plays galore about that.
I'm sure they will make a game about.
Time.
There's already so many games about astronauts stranded in space. A space station with a heartbeat? You think there's game designers who aren't already on that? Come on.
Do you think those astronauts? Sorry, this is not at all. Joan of Arc as an astronaut would be a good game too. Like space, 100 Years War. Just a thought. In fact, like, maybe we'll come back to that. I feel like I'm already creating the horror game mashup here.
Right.
But, I got so excited about Space Joan of Arc that I lost my train of thought, which is disappointing, because I feel like I had something good to say. Do you think those astronauts have played, like, astronaut horror games or like have watched Returnal or whatever?
Surely.
Is Returnal what I mean? Returnal is a
Returnal
game.
is
Arrival,
a scary
is
space
what
game.
I mean.
Yes. Arrival's not a video game.
I know, I was saying watched. And I referred to
yeah.
Returnal like it was a movie. But it's not.
Right. Maybe, they could watch someone play Returnal. That's probably what they're doing up there. Just watching a lot of YouTube.
Sandra Bullock is like trapped in space?
Gravity.
Gravity, thank you. I saw that movie, but I couldn't remember.
I did not see that movie. I was like, no thank you.
Do you think they feel like Sandra Bullock?
Yeah. Anyway, Joan of Arc.
Do you think Sandra Bullock wishes she could have played Joan of Arc?
Probably.
This was interesting. Speaking of actors here, so for this game, like made by a Japanese team.
Yes.
Right. By the way, just for context. So they were like, oh, it's in France, so like they should have some kind of French accent.
Yeah.
And I was reading an interview with the level 5 guys from like when it came out. And so they were like, well, plain English, we're working on the localization. Obviously the Japanese voice actors, I assume, do not speak with French accents.
Yeah.
I can't confirm or deny that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's hope that they don't.
They could. It'd be interesting.
What does that sound? I'd like to hear that.
Be a very challenging, I feel like it'd be a challenging thing to do. I don't know.
I'd love to hear French accented Japanese. Or like someone who speaks Japanese trying to do a French accent, more likely. Because I think French accented Japanese will likely just sound like poor Japanese pronunciation, much like mine.
Yeah.
But they decided, okay, so we're localizing it. It just doesn't feel right if they only speak in plain English. So they auditioned people with really thick French accents. And then they were like, okay, can you guys do it with slightly less thick French accents? And then ultimately they ended up going with American actors doing accents.
Yeah.
So another loss for the French.
There's a couple of side characters apparently where they did put in the really heavy French accent people. I guess because clarity. There's less need for everybody to clarity understand them, I guess.
I did really,
but it is very funny. They were like, "Yeah, just do it. Just do a fake French accent."
This interview too, and presumably translated from Japanese, right? So I was like, I wonder what was actually said here. But the level 5 response was, it's in this part of this interview. They said, when most Americans think of French accents, I think most immediately think of Pepe Le Pew's way of speaking with the Zik accent. No. And I'm like, did you say that out loud? Did you type that? Where did that come from?
I don't know.
Again, my what is Japanese with a French accent?
Maybe they said that part in English with a French accent. Who knows?
Wouldn't that be nice?
I scrolled through the TV tropes for this game because they had it. And one funny thing was they mentioned that there's one character that has a lisp. And in the text, when he says Paris, it has him say it like Parith. But since he has a French accent, he in fact would not say that. He would say Paris.
Paris.
There would be no S in it. So it's extremely funny.
Wow.
Also, they got a write-up with BioShock, apparently, in the New York Times.
Wow.
In a games review roundup, which is extremely funny.
The same tone, same games, really.
R.I.P. the AV Club, because they also had a review of this game.
Are they, even still around at all?
I don't know. They're not the same at all. So.
I loved the AV Club
I know.
in, 2010. Nothing will ever replace reading the community recaps
I know.
after.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I guess you can't really make Jeanne d'Arc 2, huh?
Maybe you could. I don't know.
It would cease to really be Joan of Arc, though, right? Either the game has to end with her being burned at the stake, or you just enter totally ahistorical territory.
Right. Level 5 has 3 games that who knows when they're ever gonna finish them, because that's apparently too many games for them going on at once right now. So I wouldn't anticipate a Jeanne d'Arc 2 announcement, even if they did bring it to modern systems.
Why do you think they did that?
I think they're just getting some stuff off the PSP, mostly. Trying to bring more, like, because, you know, PlayStation has, like, its classics catalog now, too, right? Which means they have to keep adding classics, right? So it does incentivize them to bring games that are trapped on older systems up to the PS5.
Fair enough.
Well, last thoughts on Jeanne d'Arc?
More Joan of Arc games, and PlayStation consider releasing a handheld.
Yeah.
Some people were like hoping this would appear in the Nintendo Direct that was recently too, but it didn't.
Well, it's only been on PlayStation, so who knows what the situation is with that.
I think it was published by Sony, so
yeah, that makes sense.
All right, we've talked about war, we've talked about space. Let's talk about the ocean.
Ach.
Yeah,
that's my Scottish
accent portion. Try to do here. I'll make you do it.
I don't know how to do it.
You gotta make an attempt.
I'm gonna cut this part out. All right. Still Wakes the Deep is a 2024 narrative horror game from the Chinese Room, who we have talked about before on our Amnesia episode, which I think was somewhat recently. This game came out for the PlayStation 5, PC, and Xbox Series SX. I said that backwards, but whatever. You play as a Scottish electrician. So you're all Scottish. It's set in Scotland on an oil rig. You're working on an oil rig, which I didn't really realize Scotland does have a very big oil industry. It's a big deal, especially in the 70s, apparently.
Games for education.
Yeah, the game is set in the 70s, and it's damaged, and you've been trapped, and there's something spooky going on, and also the weather's bad, which is not helpful either. And so you have to navigate your way through the oil rig, trying to survive, dealing with your coworkers, etc., etc.
Do you think you would make a good oil rig worker?
No.
If you
Is that
found
a question?
Yourself on oil...
No. I don't think I would make a very good oil rig worker.
What
about me makes you think that I could be a very good oil rig worker?
I don't know. You could surprise me. You could be like, absolutely.
No, I don't. I get sick. I get seasick, for one thing. And also, just doesn't seem like a great time.
How many minutes do you think you would survive if you were on a Scottish oil rig in the 1970s and the Eldritch Horrors arrived in bad weather?
How many seconds?
No, minutes.
How many minutes? I don't know, like 30 minutes.
Wow. How did you come to that conclusion?
It's like a gradual thing, right? So I don't think I would be the first taken by Eldritch Horrors because I just, I'm pretty stable, I think, personally. Once the Eldritch Horrors were, like, physically manifested, that's when I would be in trouble. And I think that would take at least, like, 30 minutes, so.
Oh, man. So Still Likes the Deep is, like, first person, no combat, stealthy. You're Kaz McLeary, Scottish oil rig guy, although not even really an oil rig guy.
Yeah,
you're just a dude who's ended up on an oil rig because you have to lay low for a while.
Mm-hmm. You got some coworkers. Some of them are cool. Some of them are not so cool.
As it goes.
You all swear a lot. As it goes.
You're all Scottish.
You're all Scottish.
They made a really big deal in interviews about, like, we're, particularly with Eurogamer, which I guess makes sense.
Yeah.
About, like, we're showcasing accents from the UK that don't usually get showcased.
I mean, it's true.
No, it is true. It's also just like, oh, yeah, like, I guess you're right.
Yeah. It's these guys. I'm sure there's more than this. This is a joke. There's these guys and there's Ketchy or Kate Sith. Excuse me.
If only could they have given Henry VI the Scottish accent.
I know.
Jeanne d'Arc.
Yeah.
This game got pretty good reviews overall, and like from some people, great reviews.
Yeah. It's very similar, I feel like, to the way that all of their games have been received. Like I said, we talked about them a little bit in the Amnesia episode, and their Amnesia episode was also received like this. It's like you either like the games that they're making or you don't. And I think it depends on, like, if you're coming into it as like a big survival horror fan and you want like survival horror gameplay, that's not really the games that they make, right? So I saw a lot of the criticisms were like, you know, it's not really challenging, I guess, or not like really scary in the way that some horror games are too. And I think those are valid critiques. It's just like either you're into what they're doing or you're not really into what they're doing.
It is worth noting that certainly by the release of this game in 2024, there's not really anyone working on Still Wakes the Deep who was working on Dear Esther, Amnesia. Everybody's gone to the Rapture. The whole team got laid off in 2017, and then they got bought by Sumo, and so now even the founders who stuck around, I think, left the company last year.
This was, I do think I saw in one of their AMAs or blog posts that this was the original idea of one of their founders who is now departed.
And he was the creative director through like the alpha.
Yeah.
And then it got handed to a Scotsman.
Yeah. So it because it even with that, it is still very much carrying on that brand, I guess, their brand of horror games.
Definitely. I don't know that they helped themselves. They definitely, in sort of hype interviews and whatever, did attempt to make this seem like not a walking simulator, right? Which, to be fair, it's not. But I think they may have over-described or overplayed the amount that it is not linear.
Yeah. I like, there's a little bit more like, for like platforming, for example, in this game than previous Chinese Dream games have had, in terms of like gameplay elements, because they have they're really emphasizing the water in addition to, you know, the cosmic horrors on board as being like a scary force in the weather. So you do go outside a lot and have to like traverse over stormy seas, for example, and you can get into game over states from that. So there is a little bit more like gameplay aspects than I think a lot of their games have, but it is still very much like a linear narrative experience, and pretty short too.
Yeah, only about 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, which I think is again how most of their games have been.
Can I call it a trend that we are doing ocean horror games yet, or no?
Well, what else are you thinking of?
Big one I'm thinking of is Dredge, but I feel like there are more.
You would have to, you know, you can say that, but you have to provide more examples than Dredge, I think, if you're going to make like a strong argument for it. Because I don't even know if Dredge, this and Dredge have some stuff in common, but does Dredge really count as a horror game, is my question.
I mean,
or is it just sort of like a vibey game?
Okay, Googling, you're right. There's a couple of sort of like ocean horror games that came out more like 2015, 2017 energy, but not as many recently. The gamer calls Returnal an underwater horror game.
Okay.
There is like an ocean underwater portion.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not a trend yet, but if one more game comes out, it'll be a trend. How about that?
I mean, it's surprising that there haven't been more, I feel like, because, I mean, they talk about, like, you know, they said it in the 70s partially so that there isn't as much contact with the shore. Although I think in Scotland around this time, like, I was looking into it a little bit, and they had, like, It's Scotland's oil. The Scottish National Party in the 70s was using that as part of their like independence movement thing. So there is stuff happening with Scottish oil in the 70s that I imagine maybe made it a good time to pick. But a lot of it was to like to isolate it. But boat type, place where you're like isolated on the ocean does feel like a good place to set a horror game, right? Because it creates like a hostile environment and like a constrained environment that you're stuck in.
Do you think anyone will really crack the code of creating a horror game post the invention of cell phones?
I mean,
you know what I mean? I feel like so many genres, the convention just seems to be like, well, this should take place pre like 2005.
I mean, the issue is you want them to be like isolated, right? You don't want them to be able to just like call the police, I guess, right. And be like, "Hello, please pick me up."
Yeah.
I bet there's stuff you could do, but I see why, it's either like they set it pre-cell phones or it's like somewhere where you don't have reception or whatever. I get the impulse there,
This is a challenge. This is a challenge that I'm throwing out there of like, can you create a horror game where their cell phones work?
Yeah. Where the cell phone, in fact, is a key feature. That's my challenge.
Yeah.
And not just like in the horrors of social media kind of way.
Not in like the phone is haunted.
Yes.
That's too obvious.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do the phone is haunted, but you have to utilize the phone. That's the challenge for all designers.
Emma, I'm going to share something that I feel angry about this game because I'm a capital G gamer and it makes me angry.
Okay.
You know how bulls get angry when they see the color red?
Yeah.
I'm a capital G gamer. And I get angry when I see the color yellow.
Yeah.
How dare they have things painted in yellow in this game?
Oh, right.
Like, I'm a baby.
Right.
There were at least a few reviews I read, just like from normal sites, they're like, there's too much yellow paint. Dear God. It was even on the Wikipedia page. It was like, some people thought there was too much yellow paint. Isn't that amazing that that's become like a dog whistle?
I know.
Like yellow paint.
I mean, I can see how, if you wanted this game to be more open and there was a lot of signposting. I mean, especially in a horror game, if you have a lot of signposting and guiding, I can see how that would maybe remove a little bit of the tension. But it's not the yellow paint's fault. That's just what we use. That's just the gaming language now.
There is an article actually talking about this in PC Gamer, because that's the world we live in, that there has to be an article in PC Gamer about the yellow paint of it all.
Yeah.
A whole article. Not just like a part of an article. Whole article.
Yeah.
Where there's a quote from lead developer Rob McLaughlin, who is the Scotsman. He says, "We've got loads of reference images that show yellow paint because it's a safety aspect. You have to be able to see. It's dark and windy. You have to know where the steps are. We feel we're on solid moral ground. It's important to make these routes clear to see. And it was a really good way for us to create an environment that was genuine."
I mean, to be fair, yes, I do assume that, like, on the oil rigs, they do mark the steps, maybe, so that you can see them in the dark. So fair enough. I think moral is an extremely funny word to use.
I was like, moral?
It's amoral to use yellow paint, in fact.
It is.
No, when you do get to Rebirth, you'll see it's really funny that people made a big deal about the yellow paint, because I was like, please, more yellow paint, please.
Tell me where to go.
Tell me where to go.
The PC Gamer article goes on to make the point that, also the yellow paint is serving the purpose of, you're a guy who's been working on this ship for a while, and it probably shouldn't be hard for you to find your way around.
Yeah.
Like, you, the character, should know how to get to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
There is a little bit of downtime before, the horrors begin, where
right.
you get to meet your coworkers and walk around the environment a little bit.
That's usually how it goes in a work environment.
Yeah.
Bit of downtime before the horrors begin.
Yeah. While you're having your morning coffee, and then the horrors begin. They
do also utilize, they talk in a few interviews about utilizing a lot of fog, Because of course we can't have a video game horror game that doesn't use a lot of fog.
Well, I mean, it's off the Scottish coast, so again, that's just where the fog is, you know? There's like a word for it. I can't remember what it is anymore. But they talked about like, oh, we wanted to create this very specific like feeling of weather when it's just
I think.
Yes,
right?
that's what it is. Yeah. So that's just how it is. Silent Hill's got nothing on the Isle of Britain. So
I do think it's very interesting that they worked very hard to accurately recreate a 70s Scottish oil rig. Because my head goes,
you've got
like,
to.
do you? My
Yes.
initial reaction, and I don't mean this to denigrate what they've done here. My initial reaction is like, who cares? Who cares? Who cares if it really looks right?
Well, they did talk about they released a bunch of like mini docs with all the departments, including like QA and engineering, which is not normally what companies do when they do these. So that was neat. But they talked about, or it was either there or in the Reddit AMA I was looking at, that like doing the research on oil rigs and figuring out how they work. Because a lot of the horror, like you're running around doing stuff to the oil rig, which is partially why they need to know how it works. But in doing research about how it works, it did inform like actual narrative decisions that they took, right? So the research was building the game itself. But yes, if your whole setting is an oil rig in a real place, in a real time, then yeah, Madelyn, you have to recreate that oil rig. You can't just make it up, because then it will feel fake. Even to people who don't know anything about oil rigs, it'll feel fake.
Like, fair enough. I was just like, we interviewed there was just a lot of talk about it in a way that really foregrounded the realism of the oil rig that I thought was interesting. I was like, who are people buying the game because of that? You're right to say that the game itself is enriched because of that depth of knowledge, but the centrality of it in some of their conversations was interesting.
I mean, it is the whole game, right?
Yeah, I know.
So they kind of do have to talk about it. What else are they going to talk about? They talk about the water a lot too, you know?
Yeah,
they don't want to
interviewing sea creatures.
They don't want to talk about the horrors, because the whole point is that you're supposed to be sort of scared and surprised by them, right? So in the marketing, they have to talk about the more obvious parts of the game that you can actually see. Also, gamers love realism. Didn't you know? It's
true. Gamers do love realism. Although in horror games, gamers love PlayStation 1.
That's true. That's true. In this case, they did not hire American actors to do Scottish accents. They did, in fact, hire a lot of Scotsmen, a lot of whom had not done like video game voice acting or voice acting before. So a lot of new names in this game. Generally very well received, the voice acting in this. They're very, we talked about, I guess, why were we talking about films? Because you said they watched Returnal. That's why we're talking about films.
Yeah.
But the Chinese Room takes a very, like, movie-type approach to their games. So, like, they do, like, table reads and stuff and try to record actors in the same room and mic them so that they can move around, for example. And you know, in looking at all their inspirations that they listed for this game are movies, too. So a very movie-type game experience is generally what they make. Which does help the voice acting. They should do that for voice acting when possible, wherever.
Let voice actors move!
Let them move. Let them meet each other, etc., etc.
Meet the coworkers before the horrors.
Right, exactly. The horror is when you must scream for 4 hours or whatever.
Well, is it time to mash?
Is it? Any last thoughts on oil?
On oil.
On Scotland?
Not a lot of games about Scotland, not a lot of games about oil.
I mean, it's always fun.
European week at Talk.
Yeah, very European week. Always fun when I always like when games are set in like specific places and time periods. I don't remember. I feel like I've said this on the show before, but I don't remember what context. But it's nice when they like pick a specific thing, just because games are so fantasy sci-fi focused. I think even if they want to include some demons, as they did in these two games, it's neat that they set them in specific time periods.
Yeah, also a big week for demons in real places.
Yeah, gotta include some demons or horrors or eldritch beings in our mashup for sure.
Have to.
Yeah. And that's why I appreciate the work that they did recreating the oil rig.
And
to
scene.
Set it in the real place. Exactly. Tying it back around.
Well, how does one set Joan of Arc in a horror universe?
Is that not is Ripley not a Joan of Arc type?
Wow.
Are all final girls not truly I guess not, because she's not a final girl.
No.
Joan of Arc would not be the final girl, I guess.
Joan of Arc did not make it to the end of the 100 Years' War.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you.
Never mind. Are all first victims of horror movies not
Honestly,
Joan of Arc?
You probably could do something with her friend, the serial killer.
Yeah. I guess so, yeah.
I hate to say it.
I don't know. Hearing the voice of God is kind of freaky.
I don't want us to
Personally.
turn into the Nun game, though.
Indica? Yeah, I was thinking about that a little bit. But no offense to him on high or whatever, but I think I would be a little scared and freaked out if he suddenly started talking to me, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's part of the point. I think he gets that.
Yeah. You think he understands that?
Yeah. Yeah, having said Indica out loud, it's like, oh, not unfortunately, there's other mashups we can do, but it's like, actually, Indica is not a bad mashup of these two games.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
She doesn't hear God, for what it's worth, in Indica, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Doesn't she think she hears is the devil?
Devil.
Okay, but same idea.
Yeah, same thing.
Hearing divine voice telling her to do something, kind of walking simmy mostly.
Yeah.
Set in a historical place, female protag. Horrors. Okay. Well, I'll put that as... Okay, can't do that.
Right.
That's been done. I mean, very easy to do, like, an ocean-based demons tactical RPG, of course. That is sort of nothing.
The Kraken.
Although I will say that, like, at least as someone who is only aware of the real heavy hitters in the tactical RPG genre, there aren't too many that are, like, boat-based.
That's usually, like, a gimmick level, right?
Well, like, no, I mean, like, you're on a boat, but you're not controlling boats.
Right, yeah.
Like, it would be interesting to be like, oh, you're kind of, like, admiral of a fleet. And the character, like Thomas the Tank Engine, the characters are boats.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't think Thomas the Boat Engine RPG is what we want to do here, though.
I don't think it's the right tone at all. But originally I was like, oh, like, you have all these people who are, like, captains of ships, right? And, like, you still get their, like, anime character designs, but, like, they fight as boats. And you're fighting as boats on the seas.
I think the Thomas part is better. I think they should be boats.
I thought you just said we didn't want to do that.
It's like there's like 5 special people who can transform into boats.
There we go.
They've got, like, ships in a bottle, right, that represent them. And when they do their transformation, they, like, uncork it and merge with the boat.
You're onto something here. What happens if the bottle breaks?
They die.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that's the horrors part, right? You have to keep your little boat safe.
Right.
And you don't want it to fall into the wrong hands.
Okay.
I just like the idea of I'm just attaching to the uncorking the bottle and transforming thing here. I think that's really good. So I think we should keep that in whatever we make, personally.
I'm gonna be really upfront that the tone of uncorking the bottle and transforming into a boat is not really along the lines of what either of these games is doing.
But it's like a very, like an ornate, like, boat in a bottle,
Yeah, but it has, like, a face, right?
Yeah, once you transform. Or, maybe it's more like, it's like Mecha, right? Except it's boats.
Okay.
Right? So they might have, like, sort of humanoid type features, but it's not like they've got, like, a little smiley face.
You're sure it's not they transform into, like, the nymph at the front?
Oh, yeah, like the design. That could be part of it. Like, they turn into the design there.
They kind of go, ooh.
Yeah.
And the boat, like, appears behind them.
Yeah.
You got that, listeners, right?
yeah. She made sort of a swooshing motion forwards.
They have to do, like, a little transformation, and they go, whoa.
What is that thing called? The heading? What is the... design on the front of a boat.
You were the one who was like, I would never work on an oil rig.
That's why I couldn't work on an oil rig. I don't know my port from my starboard. So. I don't even know why they're called that.
Me either.
Does the port side, do you always pull into a dock on the port side?
Do celebrities always board on the right side?
I don't know. No, okay. Like a mermaid Joan of Arc thing.
Okay.
Because you can make mermaids pretty, they run the gamut, right?
Sure.
Mermaids could run the gamut from, like...
Friendly to freaky.
Friendly to freaky. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. That's exactly how I classify monsters.
That's the gamut.
Sorry. Monsters are on the friendly to freaky scale. You're right.
I'm not sure where Thomas the Tank Engine galleon
He's right in the middle. He's right in the middle of he's the true neutral of the friendly to freaky scale.
I mean, you can pretty much put Joan of Arc anywhere, right?
Yeah, very true.
Land, sea, sky, space.
She can be anywhere.
That would be the Jeanne d'Arc series. Is they're like, we've done land, Joan of Arc. Now ocean.
Try to burn me on the seas.
Right? And at the end there's an oil disaster and she does.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it was a metaphor for climate change all along.
Whoa!
Alright, I think we've got some solid ideas here.
We do. Are they really mashups or just an idea that came up as we were talking about a mashup that we liked?
It takes some elements, from both. That's all it has to do. It doesn't have to be a perfect mishmash. We just gotta take a little bit of both.
Our pitch here, by the way, is people transform into boats.
People like that. People like when people transform into machines.
And half of them have authentic Scottish accents, and half of them have inauthentic French accents.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
If you were going to transform into a boat in a magical girl style transformation, both what boat would you turn into and what dance move / whoa type sound would play while that happened to you? How many minutes do you think you would survive on an oil rig in the Scottish North Sea in the 1970s if the Eldritch Horrors descend? What animal friends would you bring along with you to conquer Demon England? If you have thoughts about this or anything else in this week's episode, if you can confirm whether or not demons fought on the side of the English in the 100 Years' War, and at what point in those 100 years, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend and Split Screen. But most importantly, if you enjoyed the show, you should subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts. Say the word cast or pod and put something after it, and we're probably there, and you should like and subscribe and review Talk This.
Indeed.
It's my side quest next week, which, were I a responsible person, I would know what I wanted to talk about. Games about butternut squash.
I think that will not bring up a lot, if I'm being honest.
Never know.
Yeah, I do never know, but
maybe I was both
guessing.
games. Wouldn't that be funny?
You can make your point about there being a trend.
Yeah. My podcast will be about ocean horror games. No. Tune in for that next week. But in 2 weeks, what are we talking about, Emma?
In 2 weeks, it's about time. We'll be talking about The Legend of Heroes, Trails in the Sky for our old game.
Oh boy, we thought we'd escaped this.
We'll never escape. And for our new game, we'll be talking about Pacific Drive.
That's, maybe appropriate. Is that game about driving around Los Angeles?
Maybe.
I guess we'll find out.
Is LA a port city?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I was like, Pacific time, Yeah. That's all I was going after.
Right.
Anyway, folks, that's it for this week's show. Thanks for tuning in. Emma, give us an outro here.
This week, I hope your boat transformation is the coolest one you've ever seen.